Okay, fuck it, let's start this. Q film stinger. Q showing the first few seconds of a mashup that I nabbed from the internet. Q voiceover. Q cliched repetitive preamble about how the year was bad, followed by a rebuttal where I say the year was also good because there were a lot of good songs regardless, and that said songs might have been better than last year's good songs actually. Cut back to film. Terrible pun slash reference to a song to reflect how the year was. This year was beautiful crazy. This year was sweet but psycho. I promise that nobody's gonna love these songs like me. Hey look ma, I made this list. They were pretty awful. Cue the overly enthusiastic "We're Counting Down" followed by the title card and the transition music, which is usually the beat of a well-liked hit. Okay. We're counting down the top 10 best hit songs of 2019. Number 10. Okay, so many new viewers might not know about my guidelines I use for my list, especially since the definition of a hit varies from person to person. What I define as a hit for this list is basically anything that makes the Hot 100 year-end list. I eventually expanded the term to mean basically every song that charted in the Hot 100 for 10 weeks or more that had a peak in the top 40, just to have a nice balance of longevity and impact, and that has led me to put songs I wouldn't have included otherwise, but even then, there's still some problems since I'm basing it on the flawed Hot 100 that basically ignores 60% of most foreign hits, which is why I started last year making the neglected list. And that's another kind of words that I won't open right now because that's also super complicated. I don't know if I put say a UK grime banger or a K-pop song on my hit list, it's going to clash and seem out of place. I like to stick to mostly what America is listening to since that's what most of my peers are doing. So yeah, while a song might have been huge in Canada or in Australia, if it wasn't a big hit in the US, I don't include it. But when a song gains over 1 billion views on YouTube, it is a hit. Can I just call it a hit, please? This is a hit.
Esto pa' que quede lo que yo hago dura.
Con altura.
Like, yeah, this didn't hit the Hot 100, who cares? You're gonna tell me that this Envy Me song was a bigger hit just because it peaked at number 31 and Con Altura didn't even chart? I know that I've complained about the general landscape of reggaeton, but the thing that makes Con Altura the most distinctively good reggaeton hit of the year is the performer herself. I had heard of elusive flamenco singer Rosalia before 2019, and when I listened to her breakout album El Mal Querer earlier this year, I knew that she was going to be a critical darling for a while. What I wasn't expecting was that her follow-up was going to be a reggaeton track with J Balvin where she asserts her superiority that would become one of the biggest international hits of the year. For all the gringos in the audience, this would be the equivalent of Lana Del Rey releasing a multi-platinum #1 trap song where she brags about how great she is the very next year after Born to Die came out. For anyone calling her a sellout because of this, which by the way, fuck you, her follow-up singles including the super appalling Apale, her beautiful collaboration with James Blake, the weird fucking Money Man EP, the horn-based Haute Culture, and the still drum Yo Por Ti Tu Por Mi, they seem to be an indication that her output is still gonna be very diverse from now on, although I don't get why they got Ozuna for that last one. What chemistry? I don't even love most of the songs I mentioned, but I can at least appreciate her as an artist. She's doing great, interesting stuff and doing so in the mainstream. Even in reggaeton, she's been not only the men, but the women and maybe the children too, if there were any child reggaetoneros. I mean, artists like Karol G and Nati Natasha haven't impressed me really. Becky G will never not be the shower girl for me, and even the veterans like J-Lo barely counts, and Shakira, where is she anyways? The rest of the scene is pretty much a sausage fest, so flamenco start popping up with a great hook and even greater voice. Yeah, that's another thing, she's an incredible vocalist. I could listen to her sweet voice for hours, it's distinct. I haven't heard a song in a genre like this, even the production is odd. It has this weird, ghostly Frank Duke synth in the middle of it that just warbles all around.
Acá en la altura están fuertes los vientos.
I'm also glad that I've been really vibing with J Balvin recently, and this might be one of his best guest verses to date, which isn't saying much because of his choices of collaborators. I mean, the fucking like this. I don't know, female stars up in the States had their bragging hits that were not really that fun. Seven Rings and Money were basically villains songs. At least Con Altura has a more interesting beat and some motif you can hold on to, and that is a chorus repetitive enough to vibe to. It's all about how she reaches to bigger heights than the rest, and she delivers in that promise. A huge step up for Hispanic music. La Rosalia. Number 9.
Such a long time.
I have no clue what Post Malone is doing anymore. I feel like in his short yet massive career, every time he makes that big leap forward, he takes like 5 steps back. He's proven to be versatile and likable, yet most of his songs are dull and feel the same. And now that Sunflower was unexpectedly huge, he's leaning even more towards his pop style, which honestly hasn't paid off. He wasn't even that good on that song. Hollywood's Bleeding doubles down way too much. A lot of the pop rock tunes sound especially cheap. Even the best one, Circles, has some clunky production. You'd assume that for someone who's got a great talent for melodies that he'd have catchier songs, now that he's not even going to pretend that he's a rapper, so he's not a great rapper, and he's not a great pop star. But you know what he's felt like for a while?
Man, I feel just like a rock star.
Remember when people were calling him a liar? Good times.
I feel you crumble in my arms.
No, but seriously, I swear he keeps putting this type of songs on his album just to spite people who make fun of him for calling himself a rock star. Over Now from his previous album was good, and he's introduced guitar on his other songs, but this is on a whole other level. This is such a rush of raw energy. Another reason why I haven't been feeling Post's music lately is his rough voice, where it feels like he's putting way too much work. So it's great that here he's got some production that actually matches his performance. But honestly, I shouldn't dismiss the lyrics. It's not like this is a shitty ballad with some cool guitar work. It has more going on than that. At times it feels like Post makes so many breakup songs that it would make Taylor Swift jealous. Either he's still over one ex or he had way too many yet. The melodrama on this song is so intense, it's difficult to not like it. Every single one of the metaphors hits hard.
You showed your tongue and it was forked into.
The lyrics sound like a heavy-handed speech that a fantasy villain would spout incoherently, and I love it. I especially love the features. First, I have to congratulate him for getting Travis Scott on the song. I mean, I said this before, he's actually been the closest rapper to actually being a rock star with his mosh pitting and the grandiose ambitions of his music, but yeah, he's pretty good here. I particularly really like the forever and ever, whenever, wherever. But of course, massive props to Post Malone for getting the Lord of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne, on the song.
Why don't you take what you want from me? Take what you need from me.
There's been really a lot of dismissal of all rock bands that no one remembers recently, but let me tell you, Ozzy is amazing here. He's one of those great memorable rock voices in history, and he was the perfect guy to guest for this song. However, I think the best part goes to Watt's contribution to the song. I do not honestly hear a cool guitar solo and think a song is better because of it, but let me tell you, this is a kick-ass guitar solo. Goddamn Post Malone. Has he lost his mind? Number 8. Truth Horse isn't what I would call a fun song, really. It's gonna get a lot of accolades around this time, and that's okay. It's far from the worst song out there, but I just don't really enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, that first verse is already pretty iconic, but it's just something that bores me a lot. I think it's just... yeah, I don't like how it sounds at all. It's tense, its melodies feel unresolved, Lizzo herself sounds pretty inconsistent. She puts the sing in this song is missing something for me. I would have preferred some of the other singles of her album to become a hit instead, but it's almost a meme now that every big song she gets came from a couple of years ago instead. Hell, when the Grammys nominated her record, they had to specify that they meant the deluxe version of Because I Love You that has True Horse. That's so mean, that's unfair. So with her getting a 2017 song as a 2019 summer hit, you'd assume that she'd be lucky and get one of her other 2019 songs to become hits, right? Nope.
I do my hair toss.
Yeah, this song is from 2016, over 3 years ago, and it just now became a hit single. I mean, it's great, so yeah, what I don't like about some of her music are the rigid production and the strain in Lizzo's voice. And in God's Hell, you get none of that. It's a pretty sweet, fun empowerment anthem where the pianos don't suffocate you, and Lizzo just sounds incredible. As far as self-esteem tunes, this is not only one of the most confident and natural than most of her other songs, it's also way more enjoyable than other examples of the same type of songs. I bet this could really be someone's fight song as opposed to, well, something like Fight Song. And again, that hook.
Baby, how you feeling?
It just makes you want to scream. It's so great. I remember thinking that I wasn't really feeling her and maybe that I wasn't part of the demographic she's aiming for, but as soon as I heard the song, it immediately clicked. She's just an inspiring woman. I've heard people compare her to Meghan Trainor, saying she's doing what she was doing but actually good. That's so mean, but yeah, I agree. Not only does Lizzo do the whole retro current pop fusion much better, Trainor's songs reeked of egoism and bitchiness. They just gave me a pretty bad vibe. Or maybe they were just bad. Who knows, one of the two. Hell, her last hit song about positivity was just me. All About That Bass was mostly about looking good, specifically to guys, no matter your bodies. Good as hell explicitly tells you to be proud of yourself, and tells guys to piss off.
If he don't love you anymore, just walk your fine ass out the door.
It's a crime that both of them shared the same producer and made music around the same time, but only Megan's got her success back then. But I guess it was worth the wait. Just hoping she has more success than Meghan Trainor, like, where is she? What else can I say? This song is of a really high quality. Number 7. You know, I'm sometimes grateful that my community of little reviewers doesn't really care much about films as much as I do, honestly. Movie discussion has proven to be much more stressful than music discussion recently. The whole Scorsese versus Marvel, the monopolization of Disney. The Joker came in, it was very controversial, and then Star Wars came in, it was more polarizing even. Also because while I was pretty mixed about a lot of stuff in that stupid Star Wars Born movie from a year ago, most people I knew just listened to Shallow and they said, oh, that's a generic ballad, and moved on. But I will never move on. I'll never be far from the Shallow now.
Tell me something, girl.
I thought about this stupid song way too much, specifically for the first like 2/3 of the year. In fact, my all-time run review that underperformed and no one saw was supposed to be a double review against Shallow originally, but I figured that no one cared about it at that point. For a while I thought that I was intrigued by the song so much because of my obsession with watching films and wanting to someday make films, and how it reminds me of the positives and negatives of 2018's A Star Is Born. A competent yet deeply flawed movie where Bradley Cooper drunkenly mumbles his way to an Oscar just to get beaten by a worse musical movie. It was critically acclaimed, it won many awards, it was a box office success. I don't think I liked it. Cooper's direction is decent for a first timer, and Elliot and Gaga's performances were really great actually, but I found it to be way too long, too boring, and not original and fresh enough, especially for its message about having your own voice. Also, the soundtrack itself was an extremely mixed bag, a lot of competent country rock songs from Koopy, but also a few pop songs that, especially for Gaga, kind of really suck.
Why did you do that, do that, do that, do that?
To this day, I'm still trying to figure out if this is intentionally bad or not. Anyways, there were 3 official singles, and Shallow, the best of the 3, is such a pivotal moment for me because the film is surprisingly great up to Shallow, since afterwards it gets pretty dull and now this character doesn't really have much to do and much growth in the second half. But the musical sequence and song itself are fantastic. I mean, the plot up to this point is pretty compelling. Jackson Maine is an old recognizable figure in country that people treat like a joke. Meanwhile, Alan Maine is an unknown talent that comes from out of nowhere with a song and a voice. And the older artist helps her with her vision and they conquer the world together. I mean, that's just beautiful. You don't really see that in real life anywhere. And punchline. Also, I need to mention Bradley Cooper can't sing.
And in the bad times I fear myself.
My friends get surprised every time I tell them that out of the Star Is Born soundtrack that he sounds best in Shallow, because he doesn't really sound that good on the song either. I mean, I think him over like Jason Aldean, but he's also no Chris Stapleton either. But that doesn't really matter since Gaga is one of the best stars of our generation.
Tell me something, boy.
I had to make a confession. I don't really stan anybody, but if I ever have, it was Lady Gaga in 2009 and 2010. That was a little monster, if you will. I think I pressed the replay button on the telephone video thousands of times a day since it came out. Well, I have to admit, she's been disappointing me, and for a while, because she's had a string of really decent at best albums. I didn't really like Born This Way or Art Pop or Joanne. I of course didn't care about the Tony Bennett one, but I think Shallow is her best song since like The Edge of Glory or something like that. It's really stellar. Keep in mind that this was recorded live, and for a song with such traditional composition and simplistic lyrics, I mean, he rhymes girl with world. It sounds really good. A Star is Born made me believe that Lady Gaga, an eccentric, extravagant millionaire superstar who spent a good chunk of her career making songs about her own ego, was a little nobody from a small town that had genuine stage fright. The song gradually builds up alongside Ollie Main's confidence. More and more instruments keep slowly piling up on top of each other until you get to the bridge and... Did I mention that Lady Gaga is an excellent singer? She combined the underwhelming country elements in Joanne with the unfulfilled premise of Cheek to Cheek, just to make an explosive single that swept the Academy and the hearts of many viewers. You won't see this on many lists, but I don't know, man. I just wanted to take another good look at it. Number 6.
So you're still thinking of me.
Khalid. He really looked like he was gonna be more interesting than he ended up being. I don't think I've felt most of his output ever since his first hit, really. I mean, he's fine. He's a decent feature artist, but his music has become way too polished and safe, straight up boring at times. I really miss that time back when Location was out and he seemed like the most curious up-and-comer with such a little sleeper hit. That's still a great song, it's odd, it's minimal, it was something unique at the time, it perfectly captured the feeling of our last summer day, and all of his other songs have come close to getting that feeling right, but what about When the Night Comes? What did you play then? Well, at least he's got that covered now.
Nothing feels better, nothing feels better.
Weird tangent. Now that I have my car, I've made myself a driving playlist on Spotify. I mostly like to drive with chill, relaxing music rather than loud bangers to sing along to, although I do have a few of those, of course. I found that the artist that featured the most in it is Frank Ocean. A ton of somber, moody yet easy listening R&B ballads are perfectly for a late night drive. And maybe it was just because he has this whole radio station on Grand Theft Auto 5 and I used to play it all the time. He's one of my favorite artists, by the way, if that wasn't clear, but if he's too cerebral or pretentious or not family friendly enough for you, Better by Khalid musically hits a lot of the same beats. On another 30 level, it's probably amongst the best of the list. It even has a cult of cars in the music video, hypnotizing you to play on the radio. Oh no, Khalid's wearing AirPods, he can hear us! Its atmosphere is so nocturnal and so pleasant to listen to. It was probably the track that I went back to the most in a consistent way throughout the year. It's endlessly replayable. I might have said that Khalid was a PG version of Frank Ocean. For a while he was the voice of all the teenagers and mostly just talked about being one. Yet Better seems to be his probably most mature single so far. It gives you the impression that he knows his days of being young, dumb and broke are going to be gone someday, so he'll just live in the moment. While those thoughts might be temporary, the night vibe is just so eternal, and the desaturated piano-driven beat was one of my favorites this year. Add to that the fact that it probably has my favorite outro out of the year-end list. I love that Daft Punk 24 karat magic vocal effect, it sounds amazing. This was among the 20th biggest songs of the year, and even then I feel like this was really underrated and overlooked in favor of the much inferior follow-up talk. More like Khalid, I'm disappointed with you, Disclosure. What is this bit? The melodies are much smoother and catchier and better, even though at points Khalid gets the case of the scissors and I can't really understand him. I realize that when it comes to R&B, the genre is in a drought right now. Besides him, Chris Brown, and I guess Summer Walker, there wasn't really anyone to deliver us those big R&B hits this year. And while Chris Brown is still insistent, we should be grateful that Khalid is still around. Anything is better than Chris. Number 5. Ariana Grande had a very mixed year. She got a ton of commercial and critical success from her now biggest album Thank You Next. It had an equally successful tour, but many of its singles plus all the additional ones she released afterwards weren't well received, especially Seven Rings, which caused some of the worst music discourse of the year. At one point I had to wonder whether Ariana fatigue kicked in. After all, she started a new era right after the one before, releasing Thank You Next as a single, while Sweetener was still promoted. Personally, I think Thank You Next was her weakest album. Despite some highlights, it felt rushed at places, and all of this can be traced back to that lead single. Thank You Next sounds pretty cute, yeah, but I don't know, there were some stuff about it that felt really off. It didn't really feel like a single even. For Ariana Grande, it doesn't really have any impressive vocal performances or anything, the writing is somewhat repetitive. One told me this, one told me that. I learned from this, I learned from that. I don't like the music videos way too theatrical and flashy for the type of song that it is. Especially since she cast herself as Regina George and put her ex-boyfriends on her own born book. That's pretty mean, girl. Hell, I don't think any of these movies that is pairing in our romantic movies except for maybe 13 going on 30. By the way, best one here, classic. The Who seems to have this dismissive attitude toward her exes, which contradicts the more respectful verses. It's all for mess, and for a good while I didn't really get it. But then I realized, this is the best song of all time. I mean, yeah, it's my fifth favorite hit song of only 1 year, and there's been many better Ariana Grande songs, even on the Thank You Next album. Imagine would have been my number one easily had it been a hit. But Troll Track is just a giant warm hug. It is impossible to not like, it's just so goddamn cute. A good chunk of tracks of the album felt rushed and unfocused, but the simplistic writing in Thank You Next comes off as more memorable and impactful, similarly to Shallow, and just like that song is all because of the performance. Unlike Gaga, who's going big and over the top, Ariana's going more low-key and calm. Oh, she could go big, she could belt and do her Mariah impression again, but would that make the song better? Not really. She still conveys the emotion of self-love and happiness because this whole track is more about herself than Pete Davidson or Big Sean or even Mac Miller, which reminds me. I now see this as a respectful, graceful tribute to him, especially in the context of the album.
Wish I could say thank you to Malcolm, 'cause he was an angel.
I've seen way too many terrible takes about how she was to blame for his death, and you wouldn't believe how awful people can be on Twitter. It's the most personal empowerment anthem possible. She started 2018 optimistically saying she had no tears left to cry yet. Things turned out for the worse that year. She ended up being more hopeful for the future. Even the music video kind of works that way. Every single one of the protagonists on those movies lived happily ever after. Even Regina George learned empathy and joined the cross team. I hope she starts making better choices regarding to relationships, although she might already have seen all the rumors of her dating Mikey from Social House. But even if she doesn't, well, at least the song is a smash. Number 4. At the beginning of the year, J. Cole released his biggest single to date, Middle Child, a song where he claims to be neither on the older or the newer side of hip-hop history.
Dead in the middle of two generations. I'm little bro and big bro all at once.
Like he's not quite a legend, but he's not a newcomer anymore, so he feels like he's stuck in the middle, which I do agree in many ways, except that he's also stuck in the middle of being good or bad. He's got acclaim, he's got backlash to the backlash, people gave him awards, people made fun of him, people defend him, he's too corny, he's too boring, he's too cerebral, he's so dumb. Meanwhile, I'm here and I have no idea what the hell to think of him. I guess I don't hate him, but he spent these past couple of years hopping onto other people's songs and he's surprisingly a really good feature artist. 21 Savage of all rappers, he really turned around recently. I still remember those days of 2016 where he was, well, not the worst, but close enough. His generic mumble bragging, corny punchlines, repetitive courses, dull production, his songs were miserable and boring. Yet, look at him now. Not only is he good, he's proving you that you don't need to be the most lyrical, miracle, spiritual rapper to explicitly talk about some serious societal issues in the mainstream or be this unequivocally introspective on a hit song. It also proves that you don't really need to make a song like this sound so dour. This song is such a vibe. It's smooth, chill, and soulful, and that's because unlike his other one-note somber beats, this was based on a fantastic soul sample of the band East of Underground. And you all know how much I love sampling. The low-key monotone flow on 21's voice also complements the beat really well and serves thematically as a way to convey his past and lifestyle in a sort of defeated, tired way.
How much money you got? A lot. How many problems you got? A lot.
The chorus is really repetitive, which at first I thought he was just trying to create another bank account, but no. It naturally progresses from him saying, oh yeah, I got a lot of cash, more money, more problems, into him pondering about the amount of gunfights he's involved in and how much he's messed up in life.
How many times you got shot? A lot. How many niggas you shot? A lot.
I just realized this is the fourth song on this list with a statement response hook. You know, where the chorus says something and you have to respond back? Here, take a look. Con altura, con altura. Next. A lot. It's weird, so many trap bangers in this year, yet this of all things was the rap song I had the most fun with in 2019. Also, I'm not gonna lie, although 21's verses are really good, J. Cole delivered my favorite guest verse of the year, holy shit.
Question.
Others were pretty annoyed by his nagging complaints in Middle Child. With time, I really agree with them, especially about how miserable he sounded, even with those blaring horns, and I guess they're trying to be triumphant. It's a whole different story with a lot. He's excellent. Not only is his flow relaxed and chill without losing control or sounding too bored.
How many faking they streams? Getting they plays from machines.
I pretty much feel okay with a lot of what he's actually saying. I do feel like there's many songs that are that way for the sake of getting streams and radio play. We need to talk about that one line though. Now, people were initially not happy with J. Cole defending such a terrible rapper and person. 2019 was a year where basically no one liked Tekashi 69, but J. Cole brings up a lot of good points about him.
I picture him inside a cell on a cot, reflecting on how he made it to the top, wondering if it was worth it or not.
Taking a neutral standpoint, he wonders if now that he's a laughingstock that will either remain in jail indefinitely or be in danger of dealing with the consequences brought with him stitching his fellow gang members. That is, if they're actually part of 9 Trey Bloods. Cole asks if Tekashi thinks that being a world famous superstar for that 1 year was all worth it.
Cole on a mission, submitting the spot is the greatest that did it before it all ends, nigga.
Just an exceptional way to end his verse. A lot was the song we really needed in these desperate times. It's so relevant that I got 21 arrested suspiciously close to when he released his music video with a new verse where he raps.
I couldn't imagine my kids stuck at the border. Bullets still need water. Niggas was innocent, couldn't get loyal.
The way he delivers the last in the song, it's his cold, disappointing tone, worse better than ever. It's such an uncharacteristically important song, not only from him, but from Messi rap right now. He really is greater than he was. Number 3. I don't know why we're still putting up with Camila Cabello. I mean, Saint's no longer around really, he stopped making shitty covers of Aladdin songs. Of course, Camila had more solo hits than Saint already. She's not as boring as him, but she really cannot sing. That being said, her new album seems to be flopping a bit, so maybe she won't stick around much. And another one of her former bandmates can take her place. Although, unlike the guys at One Direction who all diverted into distinct solo careers of wildly different ranges of artistic and stylistic quality, the gals at Fifth Harmony honestly haven't really stood out on their own. The closest to matching Camila's success was Normani, who is better but not by a lot. Motivation was fine, I guess, but her big single with Khalid, Love Lies, was really underwhelming. That's my problem with Fifth Harmony, they were trying to be loud and sensual all the time, even in a down-tempo ballad, Normani seems to be trying way too hard.
Can't say I don't want it 'cause I know I do.
This got me thinking, if collaborating with one balladeer wasn't gonna cut it, maybe she needed to try with another one. And make perfection along the way.
I don't wanna be alone tonight.
This is the best song of all time. Now, I know what you're thinking, you literally said this a few minutes ago. This is the best song of all time. I mean, if that's how music makes you feel, isn't that a good thing? God, I listen to this one so much, it's just flawless, good lord. Sam Smith. I realized they started with Disclosure Latch and that suited them so well. Why did they even bother with the boring piano shit? They suit dance beats so much better.
Look what you made me do.
It's not as extravagant as their collaboration with Calvin Harris last year, but it's not as dry as their own material. I like seeing them doing this type of songs. I also really like their other hit this year, How Do You Sleep, but they just had this thing I couldn't get past. What is this, 2016? What the hell is this shit? It's a very quiet song, but honestly that makes it way better. The smooth, ventilation-like synths create this cozy atmosphere and the little guitar tones give it more of a groove. Sam Smith delivers one of their most solo performances yet, perfectly capturing the resentful but pleasant vibe of the lyrics about moving on and getting to know new people despite still holding on feelings towards past lovers. I also find it very funny that one of the best pop hit songs of the latter half of the decade features the title of one of the worst pop hit songs of the latter half of the decade in its hook.
Look what you made me do.
Look what you made me do.
And while Sam Smith is pretty good, the real star of the song is Normani, which I wasn't really expecting to say at all.
I wasn't even going out tonight.
While I thought she sounded restrained and forced on other songs, her voice is kind of raspy honestly. She sounds super effortless in this track. Her cooing is way much more interesting and pleasant to the ear than her belting. This is the first song I could think of where she wasn't really trying way too hard with her vocals. But of course, it's a dance song, so she has to dance.
Oh, baby, baby.
Just look at her go. Sam Smith is not a person that collaborates with other vocal artists much, so since Sam and Normani having this much chemistry took me by surprise, this whole song did. If you told me the concept a few years ago, I wouldn't have bought it, but now I wanted to sell me more. That's it with a Stranger, the kind of song that you don't want to think about, man. It's probably way too perfect for a song good, but I just can't stop listening to it. Forbes calls this the most played radio song of the year worldwide, and man, let me tell you, I wish that they played it twice as much. It's just a gorgeous, immaculate piece of art. Number 2. She was 16 when she released this. Isn't that incredible?
Don't you know I'm no good for you?
I knew it. I knew 2019 would be a good year for Billie Eilish. At the end of 2018, she was an internet sensation, and her singles were crossing over to the Hot 100, so I thought she released a solid project and become a critical darling in the right niche. I was right, but I didn't know how right I was. Her project wasn't just solid, it was an incredible work of art. It wasn't just a critical darling, it was universally acclaimed across the board and nominated for many awards. And she wasn't niche. She became a goddamn superstar and probably the biggest artist of the entire year.
Duh.
She also had arguably the biggest song of 2019. Even though All Time Round might have been a bad guy chart-wise, I have a feeling that the latter is gonna stay in public conscience much longer. While I like that song quite a bit and I thought Bury a Friend was also a stellar single, What the Party Sober was easily the best single leading up to her debut album. Also, interesting fact, for such a big pop culture sensation, she is really sad, like, good lord.
Quiet when I'm coming home and I'm on my own.
Her biggest song, Bad Guy, was pretty much an act. When the Party's Sober is the reveal of the behind the scenes. It's raw and moving. You just don't listen to emotional ballads as complex and angry as this hit the mainstream like. Right now, look at the biggest two.
To love, yeah.
Too Pretty, Too Unpleasant,
Quiet when I'm coming home.
Just Right. Maybe the thing is that while I do not believe Selena and Capaldi, I think Billie bothered to make the song good. This song proves that beautiful performances can be vulnerable, and vulnerable performances can be beautiful. Not only is her range in the main vocals impressive as hell, the backing layer harmonies are luscious and pristine. People who say that she soul whispers and mumbles have no clue of what they're talking about, to be honest.
I like it like that, like it like that.
The instrumental is varied, it goes from simple piano chords to the ambient sound effects to a near a cappella, all putting the focus on the performer herself, and Billie just sounds extremely angry and sad here.
Nothing is better sometimes.
The way Ariana lifts herself up in Thank You Next, Billie brings herself down here. Instead of being thankful for her ex, she doesn't want to see him again yet. She feels like crap for it because it's so hard to let go, and I don't know, man, emotions are so complicated, oh my god. The feeling of not wanting people around yet hating being alone hits me deep in my soul. They ask you who you are and you have to say that you're fine where you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Let me let you go.
You know what the most amazing thing is? It's not even the best song on When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Sunny, I Love You, and El Milo are way better, which is saying a lot. She might have released the best mainstream album of the past few years, let alone 2019. She and her producer Barbara Phineas released such a perfect collection of youthful and fresh, yet mature and timeless songs that perfectly capture the current zeitgeist. And When the Party's Over is one of those songs that will always be a highlight of her entire career. And again, she was just 16 years old when she made it. I'm 20 years old and I still can't ride a bike. Before we get to my favorite hit of the year, here are some honorable mentions.
I drink till I'm drunk, smoke till I'm high.
Bruno Mars should do more of this, honestly. One of the smoothest hooks in rap this year. Shame about the whole featuring Kodak Black thing. Who would have thought that the best Ed Sheeran song of the year would be an In My Feelings Pray For Me mashup with a loopy XSL freestyle and a Chance the Rapper pop verse. This song is probably way too plastic for a song, but it's also fascinating that way. That instrumental is just hypnotizing.
Girls can't never say they want it. Girls can't never say yeah.
In the now annual tradition of female R&B artist songs who I love but weren't really good enough for the actual list, first we had SZA in 2017, then Ella May in 2018, and this year there's Summer Walker with her song about treating women right. If this wasn't a list, I would have just ended up reiterating everything she says, which is exactly what Drake's Pointless Verse does, but I'd be lying if I said that he doesn't sound dreamy.
You know how to go and get a bag, don't you?
It's ironic how Patterson Fontaine was first known as Kanye's ghostwriter, because this song reminds me a whole lot of a Drake song from the If You're Reading This Is Too Late era. Also, I'm happy that I could finally find at least one song where Cardi B didn't disappoint me or annoy me.
I can't be fucked with, no. Oh, you can't touch this, ayy.
These two rappers, I've been rooting for them, they had a lot of charisma, but I just don't really feel them because of their lousy beat work and repetitive flows. So the fact that this track that was produced in like 5 minutes and has a repetitive as hell chorus, the very song either of them have done is just mind-blowing to me.
What the fuck though? Where the love go?
Holy shit.
Step on the glass, staple your tongue.
You wouldn't believe how close this was to actually making the list. If I didn't have the artist rule, it'd be like right below where the party's over. Easily the most painful call I've ever had to make for any list. Honestly, all things considered, a better villain song than bad guy. But...
Yeah, I'm a bad guy, ain't no holding back guy.
Yes, featuring Justin Bieber. I will never apologize.
Glad that BTS's best song happened to be their biggest. It's just a ray of sunshine, although seeing Halsey be part of it is still super surreal to me.
I want you out of my head.
Fine, it grew on me, shut up.
Seasons change and our love went cold.
Fine, it grew on me, shut up.
I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road.
Honestly, maybe this was the most painful call of the list. I just cannot stress enough how important and big this song felt throughout the year, and also how good it really was. It made Lil Nas a household name and Billy Ray a legend. And now, number 1. What the? That's how the video ends? Okay. Anyways, so I've been thinking for a while what would I tell people in the future if they asked me what I thought represented the whole music scene in the 2010s. Would it be the change of focus from EDM and dance to generic trap rap bangers as the dominating genre? Would it be the influence that platforms like YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud had in the way we listen to and make music? Would it be the many redemption arcs and tragic deaths and botched careers and many other occurrences that happen in the music sphere? I would probably just tell them that Taylor Swift was really big.
Nice to meet you, where you been?
Not the best, and not throughout the whole decade, but it would be pretty difficult to deny that she was the most important and impactful artist in the 2010s. For a while it felt like everything she did was an event, and her from 2010 was a completely different person than her from 2019, and her discography reflects that. All of the highs and the lows, good times and bad times, we were all following her. Sure, we also had Drake and Bruno Mars, but the former releases way too much boring, mediocre music for his own good, and the latter spent most of the 2010s recreating the 80s and 90s. There's also Adele, who was too absent, and Beyonce, who seems way too much above everything. And of course Kanye, who also always made headlines but for the wrong reasons. I'd say he's like the counterpart to Taylor, but I'd rather read shit that compared Taylor Swift and Kanye West ever again. I initially thought that 2019 was gonna be the first year where she wouldn't put anything worth talking about, but her album Lover turned out to be pretty good. Many consider it some of her best work, maybe even better than 1989. It was the first time in a while where she felt more human than ever. Even with his excessive length and questionable tracks, Taylor made me ask, how can you just not love her? This might be the best single Taylor Swift has ever made. I love Delicate and Style and Wildest Dreams. I even still bump to Shake It Off and Endgame. But this might be the first time in a long while that a song genuinely makes me smile like a freaking dork. It's so lovable.
Have I known you 20 seconds, 20 years?
It makes me happy to see where Taylor is now too. For years she's been known for her constant breakups and songs about her constant breakups, but she seems to be stable with her boyfriend of now 3 years, and this is really reflected on her music. Her love songs are more powerful now. Hey, you could even say that with Joe, we all win. Also, have to point out that his most famous acting role is playing a different kind of lover. This has no relevance whatsoever, I just wanted to be able to say that I referenced the favorite on both during this. It's such a good film. It's so satisfying to see her finally end up with a steady relationship. Her love history had been like a will day, one day subplot of a sitcom, and therefore that makes Taylor sound so jolly here. Taylor's performance isn't quite her best, but it's probably the one where she needed to try her best. Of course, she is good and all, but it really didn't need like a pristine performance. It needed to be her. She makes the little, most mundane and intimate details sound so big and precious. It's a perfectly imperfect song. You can really tell by the way she sings the word lover, it always sounded clunky.
I take this magnetic force of a man to be my lover.
Wrong in the right way, she just lays it there like she doesn't care. I don't either. I don't care if it's clunky. It's my clunky. The bridge is very loose and awkward, somewhat overridden, which makes it more sweeter and human. It's well, overdramatic and true. Coupled with a pristine vintage instrumental full of luscious rustic arrangements of pianos, guitars, and my god that bass, it sounds perfectly packaged for the holidays, like she's personally giving you an apple pie and hugging you. If I might add, it also has probably my favorite music video of the year. The sets, the color palettes, the cinematography. The imagery is like a beautiful, colorful dream without being too overwhelming like her beats for the previous two singles. In the making of the list, I realized how, as bored and tired I felt day by day, there were still many bright spots this year. Even in moments where people took what they want from us, when we went through a lot, when the party was sober, we still felt good as hell, with height, far from the shallow, like nothing was better than this. We learned from love, patience, and pain, and told everyone else to look what they made us do. And now we're trying to be together forever and ever, and I could not simply be more happier. Lover is such a staple in the making, it's just brilliant. Brilliant. A fantastic end to such a remarkable decade by an ultra talented artist that never ceases to amaze me. God, I love music. I'm RDS, and even though Christmas already passed, I better see you guys keep those lights up until January. Thanks for watching, and happy 2020. Bye.
Also, go watch Cats Out in Tears right now.
Lover.